sing all night? Really? Seriously? You don't want to listen to this. You do. Okay, well, let me get organized here. Wow, that's a lot of music. Aaron, you're going to have to get organized when I let you back up here. Okay. So this is a true story. Packing to get here was no small feat. I have a minivan, for which I'm very thankful. And it was full with many things. What is the one thing the pastor forgot to bring for herself? Her Bible! Thank goodness. I have a friend named Ron Mosca who ran into me in the bank and prayed through the passage I'm preaching today on Friday afternoon. And he lent me his Bible. So there we go. Never fear, kids. We're good. Okay, let's get this party started. So tonight I asked you to fill in the blank. Church is what? I did that because tonight we're going to talk about the church. I want to talk about what the church is and what the church isn't. And I think for many of us, whatever we put in that blank, that's your experience. That's real. That's real. That's your experience. Your perspective on what the church is, good, bad, boring, pious, ritualistic, useless, helpful, waste of time, whatever. That's your experience. And so you get to fill in that blank. And my guess is that part of the reason that some of us have had a hard time swallowing the taste of the church, it's okay if I take this out of here. I feel really bound. When you have a good sound tech, they wear these things so tight, Hurricane Florence could come through. This microphone would still be in its stand. Okay, this is much better. Now you can see me. Oh, Aaron, I really mess with you now. Okay, we're good. I guess it's that the reason some of us have a hard time swallowing the taste of the church is that it was served up at some point in our lives like half-cooked or overcooked or just really poorly seasoned. And in short, it may have left a bad taste in your mouth. But what if, just what if, you have been given an impression of the church that isn't really the one that Jesus wanted for you? What if it wasn't the picture Jesus painted in the Bible and intended for us? And that's what I want us to just consider for tonight. From there, it's a lot easier to think about why you would ever want to be a part of a church and what that's supposed to look like. So to help us get there, we're going to put one of the earliest churches in history under the microscope and see what this church has to teach us about these things. So this church that we're going to talk about tonight was established in the Middle East in the first century AD, in the town of Ephesus. So there was this guy named Paul. Some of you maybe have heard of him in history or in the Bible, and you can find his story in both of those places. But here's the deal. Paul hated the church. So if that's you, you are in awesome company. Paul hated the church, and he hardened Christians. If that's you, I'm calling Ranger Chris. He's the camp ranger around here. He's fantastic. But here's the deal. He experienced a powerful transformation. Paul experienced a powerful transformation as an adult that totally flipped his thinking, led him to think otherwise. You see, Paul did not make Time Magazine's Man of the Year in Jerusalem AD 30. He did not make the cover of that magazine, but he did, later on, end up becoming one of the most influential Christians and pastors the world has ever seen. So I figured the best way to start this venture, rather than trying to sell you that I'm a pro on this deal, we're going to go to a time-tested expert on the subject of starting churches. Even from someone who started off in a really unlikely way. His profile is not the likely candidate. Okay, students in the room. I see a lot of you. Throw your hand up for me. Students, you went back to school. Oh yeah, a lot of you. Excellent. How many of you already sat through a class where you thought, this is totally useless material. When am I ever going to use the quadratic equation in my real life? Yeah. Welcome to school. I'm so glad you went. Right? I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I learned the quadratic formula too, and I can confirm it's totally useless. I never used it outside of my pre-calc or whatever class we supposedly learned that in. But here at the crossing, my hope is to hold out teaching to you that really does matter. to real life. And not just for young people, but for adults and for families. So tonight, as your teacher, I'm actually going to want us to flip to the back of the book. Remember that? Like, when it's like, the teacher's like, you can go ahead and look at the answer in the back, right? We're actually going to do that, because we're going to start in Ephesians 4. We're going to skip right over the top of Ephesians 1 through 3, and we're going to jump into Paul's answer for the church. Don't worry, we'll go back and show our work later, right? I'm that kind of teacher too, but because I'm nice and it's the first day, I'm going to give you the answer. And I'm getting it from Paul. So this is what we're going to talk about. What the church is, what it is not, and who Jesus invites us to be together. So Paul starts with this analogy of walking, all right? Here's what it has to say. I, therefore, the prisoner in the Lord, urge you to walk worthy of the calling you have received, with all humility and gentleness, patience, accepting one another in love, and diligently keeping the unity of the Spirit of the peace that binds us. So that's how it starts. In my language, it actually uses a word in my translation that I left at home, that in our household we call the F word. It's fault. Paul talks about, hey, you know what? This business of doing life together in the church, it's not easy. It's not easy. You're going to have to get used to making mistakes together, and you're going to have to get used to getting along. You're just going to have to get used to those two realities. Stepping foot in a church doesn't make us faultless, and stepping into the church doesn't make it easy. It just means we're humans. And now Paul's inviting us. That's a pretty good opening speech. Hey guys, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to bear with each other. That sounds like the start of a lot of car rides. My dad's here. Long car rides as a kid. Going on a road trip. Okay, here are the ground rules. Someone's going to be patient. Yes. All right. It feels like Paul's doing that for the church. Like, hey, we're starting out together. Let's keep in mind how we're going to have to get used to treating each other. So Paul talks about these faults and everything in the context of love. He wants to make every effort to get along. Then he lays out what I call the timeless church recipe, right? We call this a service sampler, so we're going to play with that image tonight too. He says that there is a timeless church recipe, and that when it's cooked up right, the church can actually taste pretty good. But here's the deal. Churches have and can, over the centuries, added and subtracted hundreds, dare I say thousands of ingredients. And Paul's like, hey, can we look at the original recipe? It had 7 ingredients. 7. That was it. 7 ingredients. Here's what he says, moving on in verse 4. He says that there's going to be one body, one Spirit, one hope, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father. Those are his 7 one things. He's like, listen, you take anything out of that recipe, not the church. You add anything to that recipe, not the church. Those are your 7 ingredients. He says it's a group of people. He says there's a Spirit who's going to guide us. He says we have a future hope. He says that Jesus became a man and was fully God. He says that it's one faith. Hey, Paul knows about plural belief systems. He grew up in that. He says one faith, one baptism, and one God. That goes all the way back to the history of Israel, when they would say to themselves, "Hear, O Lord, the Lord our God is one." Those are the 7 ingredients. Which means we can toss a lot of junk out of the recipe about what the church is not. You ready? Here are some things I think we need to take out of the recipe. For starters, the church is not a club for people with peak spiritual performance, who flex their holy muscles, for everyone else to see. A little story for you. I like stories. Some of my college students are here. They know I love stories. Mallory, our daughter, she's not the most uber sportsy girl. She's tried some different things. She's tried a lot of different things. But what she did decide to do this summer, just to fill up her time and do something she enjoyed, she decided to start volunteering at Red Cedar Canyon. So if you live in the area, that's an assisted living home for elderly people. And it was a perfect fit for her. On the first day, I dropped her off for bingo calling, and I came and picked her up 2 hours later, and she's sitting out on the porch with like 6 old people telling stories, and they're all laughing at her, and 2 of them are like, "When is she coming again?" And I said, "Oh, I think she's coming for workout Wednesday." So she went back for workout Wednesday, and she said that they sat in a circle where they were supposed to bounce a beach ball back and forth to the person in the center 3 times, right? And so it was supposed to be bat, say your name, do the next one. Okay, so they're going around, and it gets to this, one of the gentlemen in the circle, and he does 1, 2, and then for the third one, he headbutts it. And the old lady next to Mallory leans over, and she goes, show off. Now, friends, showing off when you are elderly and have no scruples might be fun, but when you are in the church, that's not funny. Showing off is not a part of the church recipe. The church is more like a sports team that's training together and working towards a common goal. Paul calls it the body. I don't know about you, but I want all of my parts to work together, right? I want all of them knowing what all the other pieces are doing. And in this picture, there are drills to be run, there's positions to be played. Everyone's bringing something different to the field, including their skill level. In this picture, the pastor, that's me, I'm a coach. I'm just trying to motivate and give direction to what's happening on the field. I'm trying to care for the team and to push people to give their best. And I like this picture because coaches are not meant to play all the positions themselves. See, back in the glory days, the Packers, I really liked Mike Holmgren. I thought he was a great coach. But I guarantee that if he ever strolled out the locker room one day and got in huddle position and bumped Favre over, he'd have been like, what are you doing, man? This is not your position, right? This isn't your position. And as a pastor, I don't want to play all the positions. I can't do that. So here's the next timeless piece of our church recipe. A church is not a building. This was Paul's first thing. It's a group of people. It's a group of people who play their position. And I want to help each person find their place on the field and work towards that common goal of sharing Christ in our community. Now in the church, this whole idea of playing your spot, it's called spiritual gifts. And no one should be more excited about presence than people who know Jesus and belong to his church. So Paul actually gives us a glimpse into a few of the gifts in the church and their source here in Ephesians. So first I want to look at their source. In verse 7, it says, now grace was given to each one according to the measure of Christ, and he personally gave these gifts. Do you understand that in the church you are personally being given a gift from Jesus? Jesus walks up and says, here you go. This one's for you. That's Paul saying the source, plain and simply, is the generosity of Jesus. In my translation, that's the word I use. It is the generosity of Jesus that produces these gifts. No other reason. None. No other reason but the generosity of Jesus. It is not about our ability to charm God. It's not our ability to charm God with our goodness, but simply about the kindness that Jesus freely spent for us. You see, Jesus is the ultimate gift. He's the ultimate gift. He's born at Christmas. He's the ultimate gift from which all the other gifts flow. And this is really important because in order to access the gifts, you got to access the giver. This isn't a coercive deal. Jesus isn't being conditional about it. Well, come to me and then you get the deal. It's not like that. It's actually the best 2-for-1 deal in town, I think. It's sort of like this. Take Jesus, you get all his stuff. You get all this stuff. I sort of a bad infomercial right now, don't I? But you do. You get all the stuff thrown in for free. For free. And hear this. Jesus is not out to get from you. That is so important. I think that's something that's been thrown in the recipe over the years. Jesus is out to get something from you. Church is out to get something from you. It's not part of the recipe. Jesus is not out to get. He's looking to give to you. Please hear me. We have nothing to offer Jesus until we receive what he has to offer us first. If If you've ever been taught that you give good works to Jesus, and then you get like your membership card to the church or to heaven or something, or you're good enough, you give enough money, that is the exact opposite of the gospel. The church is a place where Jesus gives first. And what he gives is generous. It's generous. He comes to each of us and he says, hey, if you had me, I have so many gifts that I want to share with you. And to show you, this is Jesus, to show you that I'm not out for selfish gain, you know how I'm going to kick this deal off? I'll give my life on a cross. I'll give my life for yours to open this deal. And then all the other gifts will come. So you ready? I told you I was going to give you an equation you could use for real life. Are you ready? Here it is. Jesus' love plus his gifts equals more gifts. Why wouldn't you want that? Here's another one. Jesus' love, now you have to use your algebraic, like first, outer, inner, last, right? Jesus' love plus his gifts minus your good works, right? They're not in the equation. That's the truth. That is the gospel. Right there. Just take a good look at that. That's your take-home everyday life equation. What are the gifts? Well, Paul goes on in verse 11 and talks about what the gifts are. In this particular passage, he gives 5 categories. He says there's apostles. Those are people who start stuff. They're kind of your entrepreneurs, right? They see potential and they have opportunity. They love it. They run after it. There are prophets. Those are people who just are really good at saying what needs to be said. And Paul goes into greater detail about that later in the chapter. Then there's evangelists, literally the good news bringers. These are the people who just burst with encouragement and good news all the time. They can't help but tell other people, can I just tell you what Jesus has done in my life? You can decide if that deal's for you or not, but I'm going to tell you about it. That's an evangelist. Pastors, those are leader types. Using our analogy earlier, they're the coaches. They're giving direction, but they're also shepherds. They're also shepherds. It's so important. And they're people who are watching out for the flock, caring for the people. And then there's teachers. Those are people, we've got teachers in the room, people who can break stuff down into information, into parts, and help other people learn. So those are some of the kinds of people that Paul says, yeah, we need all those kinds in the church. But here's the deal. The bottom line that Paul brings it to kind of lands in verse 12. And he says that all of this, all this gift giving and gift using and gift sharing is about building up the church. That's just, like, we want to share what's been freely shared with us because it's good. Because it's good. And that's what we want to do. But Paul goes on to explain that all of the parts have to be working together, right? And when that happens, the goal is to equip and build a church as each part does its work. So, like, if, you know, I don't know who won the game today. I've been here all afternoon. For real. Who won the game? Oh my gosh, this blows my analogy. Okay, never mind. Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. You know, what if like 3 of them were like, it's tied, I'm going to go hang out in the locker room for like another quarter. You know, like, you got to stay on the field. You got to play your part. By now, you're hopefully catching on to all the team language. Everyone has a role to play, and your role is uniquely fitted for you. The degree to which we play our part is not just about